You're listening to the Energy is Love podcast.
The energy is love.
The Energy is the Love podcast.
The Energy is Love podcast.
Energy is love.
The Energy is Love podcast.
The podcast for the universe.
The Energy is Love podcast.
Now we can talk.
We can. We can hear them too.
It's okay. It'll be all right.
Yeah.
We've got an audience that isn't paying attention.
Well, we can just pretend.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hold up a sign every once in a while. Applause.
Yeah, it's recorded before a live studio audience, right?
It totally is. It's okay. They're not listening. But
Guys
it's
on their
happening.
lunch break that aren't paying attention.
I feel like they are. They know what's happening. They're watching. They're like, oh my gosh, I think it's the Energy is Love podcast. They're fanning out, really.
That would be funny. Right?
Be awesome.
That would be
Right?
awesome. Everybody starts showing up. They're calling all their friends.
Right.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, we have a crowd.
It's like
Like,
50
what?
dudes here.
Is that Mark West Side? Everybody's here. That's what's happening.
We actually,
I don't think that's what, you know what?
God, when was it, babe? It was like first part of like the end of last year, first part of this year, we were talking about how fun it would be to do a live one.
Oh, yeah.
Because they do that all the time in podcasting where
Mhm.
you do like a live
mhm.
episode somewhere, you have a huge crowd and you get to do
Yeah,
like the whole
yeah.
Q&A thing afterwards and everything and how fun that would be. And we were kind of like brainstorming and trying to come up with a game plan for that. And the Salt Lake City, have you ever been down to the Salt Lake City Library?
No, I've seen it from the outside.
Yeah.
So, yes.
I'm going to move that closer to you so that, there you go.
Okay. So, yes, I've seen it, but from the outside.
Yeah.
It looks cool from the outside. I'm
It's
like,
super cool.
yeah,
And they have like really nice rooms that you can rent, like
Mm.
auditoriums and shit. So that's where we thought we could do it. So
yeah, that would be great.
yeah, and then the world ended, you know.
Okay, let me ask you this. Before the shit went down, was your life great? Because mine was freaking awesome. It was like things were moving up, and I'm like,
Mhm.
hell yeah, things are going. Oh, shit.
Yeah,
Damn it.
it really was.
Things were
Yeah.
taken off.
They're moving. Yeah, they were moving up,
Mhm.
right? And then you're like, oh.
And then everything stopped.
Everything stopped for me too, but not necessarily in a bad way. I mean, it stopped, and it kind of crushed my ideal of what I thought was going to happen,
Mhm.
which sucked. But there's other shit that happened that was fine.
Yeah.
Good.
Like what?
So, for example, I have my jiu-jitsu school, right? So a month without any money, you're like, I mean, you guys know.
Yes, we do.
Anytime without money, you're like, oh, shit. Like, oh. So I'm not teaching anybody. I'm closed. And, you know, so all of a sudden I start getting these phone calls and texts. Hey, Mark, don't hold my, because I sent out a thing, a message, and I said, you know, I'll hold your account. You know, I appreciate you coming and supporting the school. I'll hold your account to real. And then no one, except for two people, no one didn't pay.
Like their membership thing?
Yeah. So they were
Nice.
like, no, just keep charging us. We're good. And I'm like, you felt weird about it. And I felt weird about it, but I wanted my school to survive. So I was like, okay, thank you. And the two people that couldn't pay, one of them lost their job. And I was like, and it was her daughter that was coming. And so I said, just keep bringing her, you know, like when we open, I don't care. Just, who cares? Like, it's not the end of the world, you know?
Do you think that has more to do with you? Or I think, because in my mind, I mean, that's awesome, right? That's a beautiful thing.
It is.
And I think like that has a
Amazing.
lot probably to do with you and your character and your personality and the way that you treat everybody. But I also think that's probably kind of unique to jiu-jitsu too, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think people are cool.
Yeah.
For the most part, you know, people are like awesome. You know, sometimes we can all be dicks. Right? But I just think, I don't know if it was me, the jiu-jitsu community in general, because they're all nice, really nice people. That, you know, even though they want to choke you, they love you. You know what I mean? Like, you know. So I think it's a combo. It was a combo. And plus, you know, I hate to talk, because you know how we talk about the hippie thing, and I don't really like that.
Yeah.
But I honestly believe that, okay, I'm going to say this and then I'm going to regret it. But I think it's a universe thing where for years, if people didn't have money, I would say, and I really mean this, I don't care. You know, I need to run a business and I need to pay for food and blah, blah, blah. But sometimes people need jiu-jitsu or whatever when they can't afford it. They need it the most. And so I've always been like, you got 3 months free. And then in 3 months, we'll look at it again. If you need another 3 months, basically, I'll give you another 3 months. It doesn't matter.
Fuck, I wish we lived up to Knoxville. That'd be so nice.
So anyways, I think that kind of thing came back.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Like, I even had a guy tell me who was paying. He hasn't been coming for 2 months because he has an elderly mother. And he's nervous about it. And I totally get it. And he said, you know what, Mark? I've seen you let people come and not pay because they need it. And so he's like, just keep charging me, man. I just want to come back when it's time to come back. I'm like, all right, cool, man. So anyway.
How long have you guys been open now? Back open?
Shit, I don't even know. So I was only closed for a month. So I waited. And the reason I waited is because because they suggested that we closed, and it wasn't mandatory at a certain point. And I was like, nope. And all my friends that have gyms, they closed. And I'm like, nope, we're going to keep going. And I told my people, well, my students and my friends and the people that I love, I told them, if you're nervous, don't come. That's, good. Don't do it. If you're not nervous about it and you want to come, and we'll make sure we're as safe as we can be. And but my main thought, because I had a bunch of guys commit suicide that I know, jiu-jitsu students, and I was like, these guys cannot go a month or 2 weeks or whatever it was by themselves. There's no, if you're suicidal or depressed or whatever, you don't need to be by yourself for 2 weeks or a month or whatever. So I told them, I'm going to stay open for the people who need jiu-jitsu or social interaction. And it wasn't about money or anything. Because people were paying me anyway. They were cool, it wasn't about that. And so I closed, and I made sure the best I could to be in contact with the people that I was nervous about, a couple guys, and they were fine. And then when it was, you can open if you're a gym, like a lifting gym, and I'm like, we're a gym. We're a gym. Because before, when they closed the gyms, I was like, we're a school. We're not a gym, we're a school. And then so we try to stay open as late as we can. And then they're like, nope, and I'm like, okay, fair enough. And then gyms can be open. Yes, we're a gym. We opened, and it hasn't been a problem. I actually had a guy test positive, right? And he trains primarily on Sundays, and he works with the elderly, and so they have tests a lot, And so he tests positive, and I'm like, okay. So I tell everybody that trains, I'm like, hey, this person, so and so, I asked him first, has tested positive. If you're nervous about that, stay home. Totally fine. We're going to be open, but we got to be careful. And so a couple of days later, it was false positive. So he did have. It was nice for him, especially, but for us too. But I did have a guy who's a policeman who's been tested, and he had the antibodies for it. So he stayed in February. He was sick and he stayed home. He thought it was the flu. Mm-hmm. He stayed home for 2 weeks. He said he was sick for 3 days, but he wanted to stay home. The COVID thing wasn't even, no one really thought, So he stayed home, and then got tested months after. And he was like, hey, Mark, I have the antibodies. And I'm like, hell yeah, good. So then I told people, hey, we have one person, he's had it, make sure if you feel safe, blah, blah, blah. So it's been a part of jiu-jitsu, my life, my business, but it hasn't smashed it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, that's nice.
it's really nice. And I've had, let's see, three guys that I know, jiu-jitsu school owners that I know have cut their business, have lost it.
Really?
Yeah, which is super sad. I'm
Yeah.
like, no. But, they either don't have people that help them through, which I totally understand. I mean, like, if I'm not going to train, sometimes you can't afford it. So I get that. Or they were like, oh shit, I'm not teaching classes for a month. This is not bad. Like,
Oh, they were enjoying the sweet life, right? Yeah.
Right. They were like, I can live without teaching jiu-jitsu. And then so they were like, nah, I'm good. I'll just be a student again or whatever.
Yeah.
Which I get that too. So anyways, that's my deal with it, how I'm dealing with it right
Sounds
now.
really rough, Mark.
It's really not, right? It's not. I mean, it could be.
Yeah.
Like if I worried a lot, which I don't, but if I did, oh man, fuck that. Excuse my language, but
How old are you?
Me, 50.
50?
Mhm.
Turned 50 this year?
Mhm. Yep.
At what point in your life, I think about this all the time, because I think about you, and this is the third time you've been on the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm super fucking grateful
Which
for.
I love. I'm like, hell yeah, another chance to get on the mic. Woo!
And I think about how long I've known you, and I've always the impression that I have of you, right? And at what point in your life do you feel like you relaxed?
Oh, that's a really good question.
Because I think about other people, right? I think about people I know. I think about myself included. I think about the men that I see, that I interact with, and
Yeah.
like you're fucking relaxed.
There's a lot of uptight motherfuckers in the world.
There
For
is.
real. And they don't need to be. But if you tell somebody they're uptight, doesn't do any good. Because they're uptight. And then now they're even more uptight. And they're like, oh
Yeah.
shit, I'm uptight. And then they're uptight about being uptight.
I can't relate.
But I think it has to do with, to go back to your question, I don't know, first of all. I've always pretty much been mellow, but I think when you start addressing your kind of like your own fears about things, when you start addressing fear in general, like, I wrote that a book about fear.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of just addressed my fears. And there's one thing where a bear's coming, and we talked about this, and you're like, oh shit, there's a bear. That's good. That's good fear. Right? But then you have the fear like, I don't think Susie Joe really likes me. And then, I'm like worried about talking to her. When you're young, it starts early. And then you have that fear, and then it just sits in there, and I say it sits in your chest. I don't know where it sits in your body, but it sits somewhere in your body and just fucks with you for your whole life. You know what I mean?
It does, yeah.
Your whole life. Like, it, and you're just like, so if you pull it out and look at it, I'm like, man, fuck Susie Joe. Get that. No. I mean, I'm sure Susie Joe's a great person, but what you do to yourself, that's messed up. So I'm like, what happens, man. I got very little control. Control I do have, I'm going to take advantage of it, but I'm not going to worry about Susie Joe or grizzly bears or.
Do you remember being younger and having all of the weight of all of that stuff?
Oh yeah, dude. Oh yeah. I think everybody. Do you have that too?
Not me. I'm good.
I love your sarcasm. But what good does it? One day I woke up, I don't know when it was, and I was like, what can I honestly do about it? What control do I have over it? And it's very little.
Yeah.
I mean, can you control COVID or whatever? No, you can't. Can you control a racist dude or lady or whatever, how they feel? No, you can't. Can you control the people who want to wear masks and the people who don't want to wear masks? No, you can't. I mean, you can try through, rules and laws and blah, 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 but no, you can't. You can't control any of that. So my thing is, I'm just going to control what I can control and then be ready for everything else and be happy about it. I mean,
do you find it,
can't do anything about it.
Do you find it hard? Is
No.
there any part of it that seems like a challenge that you kind of have to, because I love that you kind of move through life that way, right?
Yeah.
It's inspiring.
Some people are like, no. Like my ex-wife, for example. She's not like me, and I'm not like her. And, I mean, I don't know how to explain it, but you just get to a point where you're just going to be yourself. And even if yourself is like a worried person, like, I'm going to worry about this shit because that's who I am, then great. But if you worried about something and you don't want to, like, God, this is taxing. I hate this about myself, Like, I don't, I don't want to be like this. Then you need to sit down with yourself and be like, why am I like this? Where does it come from? How do you sit down with yourself?
Do that? Like all of that. How do you know questions? How did you do that?
Yeah. So what I did is I wrote about it. That helped me a ton. Because then I was like, oh yeah, like when I was 13, this weird shit happened. And I've been carrying that for 40 years or whatever, 30 whatever years. And why? And when I look back at it as an adult, I'm like, that was stupid. But you see it as a certain age, and then it's a real thing, and it's very destructive and hurting, and it scares you or whatever, and then you carry that the whole time. And then I'm like, nope, I'm dropping all this shit. Boop. Drop it. You know how have you ever met somebody who was smoked cigarettes? Or you could be that person.
Yeah, we were.
Yeah. Or alcoholic or whatever, someone who likes, and then one day they just stop. Boom. They're rare, but they do that.
That happened to me.
Right. Okay.
On a labyrinth. It just fell off of me. I was getting ready to go have a cigarette.
Why? How?
I don't know. I didn't question it. I was just like, yes.
You were thankful too.
I was
you were
thankful.
Like, hell yes.
Yes.
That's the same thing with fear and worry for me.
Wow.
One day, boom, gone.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Don't know. I mean, it could be because I looked at it and was like, why? When you try to analyze through your brain, that shit doesn't work.
Yeah.
I try. You calculate, you're like, well, there's a 37% chance that I'll get this. And that just fucks with you more.
Can you hear me? Can you hear what's happening?
I know. I know. And that just is even worse, like you're like trying to break it down. You're trying to convince yourself logically, you shouldn't worry, blah, blah, blah. But that's not how it works. How it works is, in my opinion, you're like, fuck you. You're ruining my life. So you can go fuck off. You remember, I don't know if you guys were bullied, but it seems like everybody had a bully. Okay. So if you faced your bully, I think bullies are an important part of growing. Mm-hmm. They're dicks and they're ass, but they take you to a place that if you fight back, you don't care if you die. Like I had a bully and I was like, I don't give a shit. What? Like I took his shit. I was in 3rd grade. He was in 5th grade. And I took his shit and took his shit. And then one day I was like, nope, kill me, motherfucker. We are fighting. So and I've always been a fat kid, so he called me fat, and we got off the bus and just talking shit. Normally I just walk home and I was like, have you seen that one video? And the lady's like, not today. That's what happened to me. And my, like, some fierceness came out, and it was awoken by this person, which I'm very thankful for. And it came and it was like, either I'm going to die or I'm going to whoop something is going to happen today. And so he was in my face. And then, of course, I started crying. It was almost like the scene from what's the Christmas story where he beats
Yeah.
the
little redheaded asshole bully kid.
yeah. So I just lost it. Yeah, dude. I was like, nope. And all I remember is I just started swinging. I was swinging, and I was like, I'm not going to stop until there's blood. And that's what happened. I just started swinging. So anyways, kid never fucked with me again after that. And everybody who watched it never fucked with me either. I'm like, oh shit, Mark, you're crazy. I'm like, he took me to that point. So that's where all my fear of this kid, not fear in general, because I was still fearful of a lot of things, too many things growing up, but I had enough. And so, so I was like, no, and I think a lot of people who, like, for example, if we're talking about COVID or whatever, they're cautious, and I think that's very important. And they're nervous, and they're a little fearful, and then they get to a point where I'm gonna go ahead and take some risks. I'm gonna go ahead and face my bully, basically, and that's what I do. I just face my bully. There he is. He's waiting for me. I'm not gonna let him talk shit. Nope. It's gonna be like, we're going, man. We're going. If I die, I die. Like, literally, I remember thinking that when I was a kid. I was in, like I said, 3rd grade. How old are you when you're in 3rd grade?
Like 10, 9 or 10? 9?
10, you're in like 5th grade.
Okay.
Because let's say
First grade's
kindergarten,
like
you're
6,
5.
yeah.
6, 7, 8. I was 8. I was probably about 8. Yeah, he was 10.
That's little.
That's little, right?
That's
To
little.
get that lesson.
Yeah.
Like,
Goodness.
I'm going to die, but I don't care. At 8 years old, that's what happens to you, though.
That pulls on me. I'm like, oh.
It's not a sad thing.
It's an empowering.
It's a good, like, almost necessary, And then if you don't fight your bully that time, you're going to get another one. And you're going to get another one. And you're going to get another one. And it doesn't even have to be a person. Soon it's a situation. It's a thing. It's and it'll just keep coming and coming.
I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, eventually you become your own fucking bully, right? You become that own person that is constantly.
You put yourself in check.
Yeah. Beating the shit out of yourself and,
Yep.
Degrading yourself and all those kind of different things.
100%. And you're like, nope. You got to be there at one time. You got to see it.
Yeah.
You have to see it and be like, no. So basically, I didn't realize how important the bully was until I started writing. And then I'm like, and just like you said, I think then you become the bully and you bully yourself and you think it's protection. You think you're protecting yourself. No, man, like, in my mind, I'm limiting, I'm caging, I'm imprisoning myself. I'm holding things, and that's what bullies do. They're controlling you, and that's exactly. No more of that.
Do you find it like an ongoing process at this point in your life, or is it pretty? Because I said, fuck, Mark, I'm jealous. Like, I'm just jealous. I feel like I have invested heavily in the last 5 years in my, like, mental and emotional and physical well-being and health, right? And part of me,
spiritual journey,
everything, right? And part of me feels like I've walked, 5 steps forward from where I was 5 years ago,
right?
And I really haven't made that much improvement. And I think about the grind almost of what it is to try to continually battle all of those demons, all of those things that are inside of my head, all of the things that I struggle with, all that shit.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here listening to you, and it feels like you're like, well, fuck, I don't have any of that shit. Like, I'm do you know what I mean?
I'm sure I do.
Yeah.
I'm still, I'm sure it doesn't end.
Right.
Like, so.
But does it feel like a struggle?
No.
See,
it feels like an opportunity without being as cheesy as that sounds. Because let me give you an example. So I've given up my car, not because of any great, like, I'm going to stop driving to save the planet. No, I have this car, my station wagon. It needs a transmission. It's $2,000. I don't got it. I don't need a car. I got a bicycle. Boom. Okay. So I'm riding my bike everywhere. I've been doing it for probably about 8 months. My goal is a year, but it's a year from now because I just decided, okay. And I've been paying damn car insurance the whole time. I'm like, dude, so I need to stop.
Yeah.
But anyways, so I ride to the jiu-jitsu studio every day. I ride to yoga. I ride to the grocery store. I ride everything. And like once a week, I'll borrow my mom's car. I pay her insurance on the car, and I'll keep paying that. But then I don't feel so bad if I need to borrow a car. You know, like pick up my kids and be like, okay, let's go to the store, blah, blah, blah. So anyways, I ride down my street every day, multiple times. And so the other day, probably about a week and a half ago, I'm riding and people holler at me all the time. Hey, 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 you know, like, and it's usually like you got $1 or one time this girl goes, hey, she flags me down. She's like, hey, you got a lighter? And I'm like, oh, no, sorry, I don't got a lighter. And she looked at me and she's like, you don't got a lighter. I mean, because I have dreadlocks, you know, and I'm like, no, I don't smoke. You don't smoke. I'm like, sorry, like she's giving me a hard time. So I usually just keep riding. If I hear anybody holler, I'm just like I didn't pretend I don't hear them, because I don't have a lighter, and if I have $1, that's my dollar, not your dollar. So, I keep riding. So I was riding home from jiu-jitsu. It's about 9 at night after class, and I hear somebody yell at me, but it's not like a friendly, hey, it's like, motherfucker. So I turn around on my bike because you can't keep going. I mean, there's because I got to ride up and down the street every day. So if somebody has a problem with me, it's going to get settled right now. So somebody hollers. There's like 5 or 6 dudes on a porch, a couple ladies maybe. And so I turn my bike around. I'm like, what's happening? You know, like, yeah, what do you need? So this dude comes out of the gate, comes off the porch, comes out of the gate. And he's like, hey, what's your name, man? He's a black dude, probably 30s. And I'm like, my name's Mark Johnson. And he's, oh, from the Johnsons down the street? I'm like, no, I'm from Cali. I don't have family out here, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, have you been to prison? And I'm like, no, I haven't been to prison. He's like, oh, man. Okay. I was like, okay. Because he goes, we thought you were somebody else, man. We were about to get you. And I don't know if get you means fight you, jump you, which I would prefer, or shoot you. And so I'm like, oh. And he's like, yeah, but you're not the dude or whatever. And so there we go. Like, that's a possible death. Nothing else, you get your ass whooped by 5 dudes. Like, I know jiu-jitsu, but 5 dudes, that's a lot of guys. So if I was afraid, which I don't think I was. If I was afraid and I kept riding and I didn't stop and confront and be like, what's happening? Like,
next time it could have been.
Yeah. Then they would have just jumped on me like, oh, that's him. I didn't, I had a chance to clear it up, and I didn't clear it up because I was afraid.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so I go ahead and if I can, and I'm not trying to make myself sound like I'm not afraid, because there's plenty of shit I'm afraid of, but I try to, if it needs to be confronted, then I'm going to go ahead and try to confront it, but I'm not stupid. So at the same time, so I ride on that street. The next night, there's like 20, 30, and I'm not exaggerating, 20 or 30 dudes. They're all gangbanger dudes. They're at that house. And they don't say nothing to me. I ride by, and then I'm like, I ain't riding up the street tonight. I'm riding in the next street. Because I'm, even though I don't feel like I'm afraid, I'm not stupid. Like, all it takes is one dude to be like, yeah, that's that nigga right there, man. And then now what am I going to do? And I'm like, no. So I remember just like, oh, that's how I rode. And everything was fine, And then this morning I rode past and it was fine. So the fear part, I mean, there's grizzly bear fear, like I was saying. to me, riding on the other street is a grizzly bear fear. Like, if there's a grizzly bear, I'm not going to go right up to it and be like, hey, grizzly bear. No, I'm going to go the other way. But if there's like, I'm nervous about this, and it's just an irrational fear. I'm getting better at recognizing the difference between.
Wow.
That's the hard part.
Yeah.
But I'm okay with it.
What's the longest running thing that you have battled within yourself?
Well, to be fear, for sure. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, fear. Oh yeah, fear's number one for me. It kept me from doing so many things.
Does it still kind of sometimes?
No.
I remember you did like your year without fear thing, right?
Yep. It doesn't stop me now. I'm still nervous, but it doesn't stop me. I still have fear, but it doesn't stop me like it used to stop me. Like, and then if you're even somewhat intelligent, you get really good at justifying your fear and explaining shit. And you get really good at, and I can tell by the way you're looking at me that you do this, you get really good at coming up with reasons why not. And they're very sound.
Very sound.
Yeah, and they make a lot of sense to us. And then we follow them, and we're like, yeah, you're right, man. You're right. We're not going to do that. That's dumb. And then that's not true necessarily. That's us being really good at talking ourselves out of doing shit. So now what happens is I'll do that, and then I'll stop and I'll go, that's a good try. I'm going to do it anyway. Yeah. Unless it's something stupid. And then I really know it's dumb. But if it's just because I'm afraid, I'm like, yeah, man, this could happen. Blah, blah, and then you have these visions, and you guys got a kid. Like, remember when your kid was climbing a tree, and you were like, oh shit, and then in your head you saw them fall and break their neck.
I still do that.
Yeah.
That does. I can't stop that.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So you see your kid climbing a tree, and you're like, you have that vision, and then you yell at your kid, hey, God damn it, get out of that tree. And they're like, I'm just climbing. You know, they don't see what you see. And you're a dick because they're just climbing a tree. Right. They're not even doing anything bad. So now I check myself, and I still have my youngest is 11, and he does dumb shit. And I check, am I afraid or is he afraid? And what's the real danger?
Ooh.
You know what I mean? Like, he's climbing a fence, okay? The fence is 10 feet high. He could get hurt. If I see him falling down and breaking his neck, but then I rewind that, beep, he's probably not going to fall and break his neck. Hey, Samuel, you good? Yeah, I'm good, Dad. Okay, be careful, man. All right. Boom, done. Simple as that. He's going to climb a fence. I want him to get really good at climbing fences so I don't have to worry about it. But if I shut that down, get your ass out of the tree, then I never climb a tree. Now I put my fear on him.
Oh, damn.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like I transferred it.
Shut up.
Yeah.
He's laughing over there. Yeah, I hear it.
Yeah. I mean, that's just what we do. Man. I wouldn't feel bad about that. That's what we do. But now I transferred my shit.
I don't want to do
put
that.
Put it on my kid. Now my kid doesn't climb. Now he passed that to his kid. Don't climb that tree. You're going to break your neck.
So this is in case it wasn't obvious, people that are watching and listening, we're at a park in Ogden, and obviously there's some people, damn little wiener kids that are going to have some pizza or whatever over there, but that's cool. It's not too distracting. It leads into a bigger conversation that I want to have with you, Mark, and that I want to be able to try to discuss some things with you about race and about everything that's going on in the world today. Mm-hmm. And the caveat is, you know me. You know me pretty well. Mm-hmm. You just met Steph, but we're going to fuck things up, and we're going to say some things probably that are offensive in some way, shape, or form, or ignorant in some way, right? That's a big thing that we're becoming super aware of how ignorant we are. Yeah. But when you talk about fear, especially in the context of what you were just describing, of how you pass that fear on to your kids, right?
Right.
I mean, it's. I think now so much of what's going on right now with racism and white people and the way that they are justifying and arguing and having this discourse that's taking place in the fucking country right now to me, the undercurrent of it is that fear, but it's like so subtle that they don't want to address it and look at it and speak about it.
Right. Yeah.
And it is just the
Definitely
systemic passing down from generation to generation. Just as like the all out, straight up fucking racist white supremacist is going to pass that on.
Yeah.
We're going to pass the subtle, under the, surface level stuff that isn't obvious.
I'd
generation
rather
to generation.
To break off from that, just to point this out, I would rather meet and talk to someone who's flat out like racist than someone who doesn't know that they have those the same kind of thoughts.
Yeah.
And some people, I don't think they know. They don't really, because I watched this video the other day. This lady, I'm not racist, and then she says all this racist shit. I'm like, you're not racist. Are you sure? Did you hear what you said? Can you see how you're acting? But someone who's like, this is how I feel, and whether it makes any sense or not, but they're really upfront about it. Like, this is how I think, and this is how I'm like, okay, cool. We know where we stand. I'll be over here not talking to you. But I get it. So to me, I have a lot of respect for not the views that people have, but by standing by it and not hiding by it. They're not confused. That's just how they believe, and that's just the way it is. That's fine. I'm good with that.
Do you think that, I can see how that would be an easier, like you said, it's like, it's clear, right?
It's super clear.
Like, it's not a matter of,
there's no mistaking.
It's the guy that comes off the porch and says, hey, I thought you were that guy, and we were going to fuck that guy up.
Yeah.
Right? It's
exactly.
clear. You know what that guy's intentions are.
It's clear. But here's the thing about that. I was thinking about this the other day. I'm like, okay, it's dangerous being black from white people, but it's dangerous being black from black people. Like, this dude, and we're the same color. It's about violence. It's about fear. It's about protecting what you've come to consider your life. So his life, this dude's life is banging. And that's what he's concerned about. And skin color has something. If I was a white dude, he would have said nothing to me. Nothing. So.
It's funny though, the white dude is like super fucking freaked out and paranoid. Right.
Yeah. He wouldn't. No. But he's safe. He's probably safer than me.
You think so?
Oh yeah. In many ways. Yeah. Oh yeah.
See, that shit that people wouldn't even begin to think that way.
Yeah.
Right?
No. There's a lot of times if you're well dressed, you have maybe a nice car or something, people aren't going to mess with you. One, because they know you can call the police or whatever. You have certain avenues that you can take. When you're riding a bike and you kind of look like a homeless person like I do, they're like, he ain't going to call the cops. He's just like me, and so it's a different kind of.
Yeah. What were you going to say, babe? Sounded like you were going to say something.
I don't. I'm sorry. Hi.
Yeah.
I'm listening. You said you wrote a book.
Yeah.
Is it?
I wrote a book on Amazon. It's on Amazon. And
it is on Amazon.
Called Hug It, A Year Without Fear. And
there was a shirt you had.
Yeah.
I've got a Hug Life.
Yeah, Hug Life. That's right. I remember that.
So I wrote it because I needed it. And so all I did is I took a year and I wrote every day for a year. And it was based on the fears the irrational fears, because there are real legitimate fears that you have to have if you want to be alive. But I have all kinds of like just weird. I call them weird now, but at the time they're not weird. They're real, and you take them in and they kind of guide your life, and they're irrational. Like they should not be dictating your life because you made that shit up. So I would take all these things, like, for example, I didn't want to ever run because I was afraid of it. Like, what would it say about me? What would people think of me? Like, I can't run a mile, blah, blah, blah. So I wouldn't do it. And here comes this voice. Oh, man, remember when you hurt your knee? That's not good for your knee. You're a big dude. You might get that little voice, right? All those excuses.
I got bum fucking knees right now.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, I can't run.
Yeah, you can't do it.
No. It's too risky.
Yeah. And so that's what I would do. I do the same thing. And it could be true. It wasn't true for me though. So anytime I would come up with an excuse, I would look at it and be like, nope, I'm doing it anyway. And we're going to find out if it's true or not. So then I started running and it wasn't true. So what was true is I couldn't run a mile. That was true. But it wasn't true that I was hurting my body. And none of that, all the reasons were not true. And so I kept running and I kept running and I kept running. And anytime an excuse came up, I would just knock it down. Like, nope, I'm not listening to that. Because I know that little voice is trying to protect me. It's like my mom in my body. Right? And its only purpose is to protect me. You're a mom, right? You're a dad. We protect our children. That's how it felt. But it was incorrect. Like, it was not helping me. What it was doing, it was hiding me from the things that I needed to see or do. And it was not a bad thing. It was just a thing. But then I recognized it. I was like, nope, I'm doing it. So what I did, and we talked about this a lot, you and I, about saying yes to things, no matter what it is, unless, of course, it was like, hey, let's go rob a bank. Nah, man, I'm good. But let's go run a marathon. I don't run a marathon? That shit's going to be hard. Okay. When is it? And then you just do it. Now you do it. And the other thing is you got to be a person of your word. So what I told myself, if I say yes, I'm doing it. I don't care what. And I was going to say yes to everything like we talked about. And so people would ask me to do shit all the time. Hey, Mark, let's go on a hike. And before I'd be like, oh, I got shit to do, blah, blah, blah. And the reality of it was, I don't think I could make the hike. So I'd come up with all these, like physically. So I'd come up with all these reasons why I couldn't. And I was like, nope, I'm doing it. And then I'd go on the hike, and sometimes I could make it, sometimes I couldn't make it. But the fear started diminishing. Like, what are you afraid of? You know what I mean? Like, why are you making all these excuses and not doing shit? And so that was the book was about that. So it was about people asking me to do shit or situations coming up and me not making excuses not to do it and me actually doing. And I did a lot of cool shit that I would have never done. No.
How did you handle it when something came up that it wasn't a fear thing that you didn't want to do? It was just, I really don't want to do that.
Did it anyways.
You did it anyways?
Yeah. And there was nothing like that though.
Really?
There was nothing that I didn't want to do.
Really?
I did, yeah. Camping and all this weird shit that people asked me to do. I just was like, hell yeah. And then when I did it, there were some things I didn't think I would like, but I ended up really liking and learning shit. So there was nothing that I didn't benefit from. I'll put it that way. Yeah. Not one thing that I can think of.
So when you handled the irrational fears that would come up and you're like, I don't know, let's see if this is true. And you would find out if it was proven that this fear was legit, something happened that. If
something scared me and it was like, oh shit, this is real, then that's, life. I got to save myself. I'm not doing that. But it didn't happen.
It didn't happen. See, that's my question. Like, how do you balance that? Because that's one of my fear intuition. How do you know?
You got to step into the arena, man. That's it.
But there's shit I don't want to do.
Step into the arena.
I heard.
You got to do it.
All right, I hear you.
Why wouldn't you?
Oh, do you want my list?
Yeah, stop right there because that's what I'm going to say. You're going to come up with all this shitload of excuses.
Well, shit.
Do you think you could do it, babe? Do you think you could do a year?
Why?
Of saying shit to everything.
Saying shit? I can say shit to anything. Yes, I can. Yes, I accept
and I didn't.
that.
There were like.
Oh man.
Let me think.
Oh, sorry.
I'm pretty sure there's nothing that I didn't say yes to, but if it was too. I think I would have said no to some things, but it never came up like that. But I was willing to say, if I had to say no, it had to be like a really life or death thing. If it was just because it would make me uncomfortable, then that was not a reason to say no. Wow. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna go get your book.
I don't know. It's not as fascinating as it sounds, but for me, it was great. I think everybody should write their own. So that's what I did. I just wrote every day, basically posted it to Facebook. And then after a year, I had all this writing. I was like, bro, take this and put it together.
I remember that. I remember he was reading and telling me about your stuff.
Yeah.
And it was irritating me because it scared the shit out of me. I'm like, nope, that's crazy. Nope. And like all of these things. And so I definitely wasn't ready for that. But hearing this now, I am eating this up, which is scary as shit.
Fear's big.
It's
so
big.
To take it back to now, I think a lot of people are afraid of things. And since anger, in my opinion, and I've read this somewhere, it's nothing I made up, but in my opinion, anger and all that stuff comes off, it's a secondary emotion. So if you're fearful, that's your first emotion, and then you might be angry after that, and then shit gets fucked up. Because, like, for example, I tried to explain this to my son the other day, where he drives now. He's 17. He's been driving for a year. And I'm like, I was trying to explain to him how anger is secondary. And he's like, what do you mean, Dad? And I'm like, well, have you ever been cut off in the car? Somebody cuts you off. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, do you get angry? And he goes, yeah, sometimes. Why? Because they cut me off. And I'm like, well, when they cut you off, are you afraid? Like, they're going to hit you. Like, oh shit, they're not paying attention. So you're afraid first. And then that fear turns into something else, like anger. Like you motherfucker, you almost killed me. Like, I could have died. So you're mad at them about it. And I think the people that are angry about things are fearful first. So think of someone who's really a white supremacist. There's fear before there's anger. Like, they're mad and they can be super violent. That's why I was telling somebody, cowardice is not meek. Like, people who are cowards, they're not meek. Sometimes they are, but the most violent people, in my opinion, that I've met are fearful. So a lot of times cowards are the most violent people you'll meet. The people who are afraid, they become violent because they're trying to preserve themselves. And then they do stupid shit and they hurt people. And it's not because they're strong. It's because they're not. But that doesn't help you when they're trying to bust your ass.
I saw that because you posted that recently on Facebook.
Yeah, I was trying to explain.
Just a simple sentence explaining, fear was the first thing. And
people were like,
they got all fucked up over it. Yeah. People really had a hard time swallowing that one. And it cracked me up because I totally agree.
I think it's true. I'm not sure, but for me, it's true.
Well, because I've done all this men's work over the past few years, right? And sat in circles and done retreats talks and all sorts of different shit. Mm-hmm. And they'll oftentimes, men will present anger and rage, right? And think that it's this all encompassing, here's everything I've been holding all this fucking anger and rage in, and it comes out in this big, huge explosion. Right. And then you actually get to the stuff that's behind it. Yeah. And that's where pain and sadness and fear and everything else lies all behind underneath. The anger. Yeah.
It's like, what's that show with the, I was going to say something. With the short people, you guys are going to laugh at me because I'm going about this the wrong way. Short people, there's a dog that has red shoes in it. There's a tornado.
Dog. Wizard of Oz?
Yeah, Wizard of Oz. So anyways, that's part of my
best description of Wizard of Oz ever.
That's my problem. I could remember all 10 things to describe, but I can't remember the thing.
Yeah.
So anyways, but the Wizard of Oz, the actual wizard, right? He's hiding behind this thing. He's underneath it, and then they're scared. Like, they see this big, scary guy, but underneath it, it's this little man, and he's afraid, and so anyways, that's what I think of. It's just like the Wizard of Oz, where it's this big thing, and he's trying to scare, the Scarecrow and Dorothy and all that, and he's putting on this big show, but underneath it, it's this fearful dude. He doesn't want to get discovered, and then course, you know, the dog comes and runs at me. He's afraid of the dog. And
I think about like whether that is, because I'm sitting here thinking about myself, and I'm also thinking about our son, because he'll hide all of his emotions behind anger as well. Mm-hmm. Like he'll just, immediately respond with fucking anger rather than I'm really sad, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't want to express that.
That's hard to admit.
Yeah. And so I'm sitting here thinking, like, how much of that is learned behavior that he's just repeating, or how much of that is some sort of like evolutionary thing of trying to protect ourselves and all that kind of shit too, right?
Yeah. It's a sticky thing, man. It's not like simple, like just do this. That does not work. I think it's just sitting with yourself and like dealing with yourself. A lot of people don't do that. They bury themselves in other activities or alcohol or whatever, and they don't sit down and be like, okay, I'm going to be still and I'm just going to let shit come up. And then it comes up and you're like, oh, that was what? Wait a minute. I still do that. I just sit around and like the whole gardening thing. I'm just sitting on a chair under my lean-to that I made. It's pretty awesome. And these thoughts come to my mind, and none of it's fear. Very little bit of it is worry. You know, like I was telling you before, my ex-wife worries. She worries about my kids, and I'm thankful for that, you know, but it has to be really hard on her. You know, like it's taxing to her. And then she worries about me not worrying about them. Yeah. Yep. I know.
Yeah, we can relate.
Yeah, I know. Everybody can. It's just true. And then, you know, we don't get in arguments about it anymore because I don't have to deal with her and she doesn't have to deal with me, but it still exists, you know. And so worry is that's a hard one, you know. I don't want to carry that with me. I don't want to carry it around. There's things to be worried about, but I'm most definitely not going to take it with me. And so I have conversations with my kids, and we talk about being safe, and even the COVID thing. We talk about, you know, what maybe we should do and what we shouldn't do, and they're mixed kids, you know, like they walk up down the street and they have to deal with certain things, being mixed race, and you know, if I thought about it, I could be worried. Like their mom's worried, you know, like these are my babies. I don't want. But she can't do shit about it. You ain't going to walk them everywhere they go. You can't.
Steph and I constantly do this in regards to so many different things. Mm-hmm. And I think her and I have a really healthy balance that we have been able to kind of meet and blend.
Yeah.
So that we work in conjunction with each other. Mm-hmm. And there's times where she's too heavy-handed with stuff and it causes tension. And then there's times
too light.
Yeah, there's times where I'm carefree and fancy-free and don't give a fuck about anything. Yeah. But that dynamic of like, I'm just thinking so much about all the shit that especially in the last few months, right? Because it's been, I essentially stressed for like 2 weeks with COVID shit and Corona, and then I'm like, I don't fucking care. I don't fucking care about it. I don't have fucking time to worry about it. Yep. You can.
It's your bully.
It is, and it's so. We talked recently about how, because it's the information that is out there is so fucking confusing and so hard that you can't trust any of it.
It's contradictory. Right?
And I feel at this point, so much of it is just CYA. Everybody is just covering their own ass from like the top down, right?
And so where do you come up with, without cutting you off, where do you come up with the answer?
Well, for me, the answer is what feels right for me.
Okay, where do you come up with the answer? Where does it come from?
Fuck, dude, I don't know.
Yeah, you do. Where does it come from?
Well, I feel like it comes from my belly.
That's right.
I feel like it comes from this place inside where...
Your gut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just this really simple thing.
If people would just do that...
Yeah.
Man, it would be so much... It comes from your gut. Is it right or wrong? I don't know. But all the contradictory stuff, you'll never piece that together and make it make sense logically.
Yeah.
There's two sides, and there's a middle shit, and there's this, and there's that. Or there's this little voice that tells you, and if you're smart, you'll listen to it. This is what I should do. And it's based, in my opinion, it's based on our experiences. Growing up, the things we know, things we believe in, blah, blah, blah. That all comes together. But there's this little voice, and to me, it's the truth. Sounds weird. But that. And then when you started listening to it, what happened?
Well, I mean, I start listening to it, and I feel better, right? I feel more calm.
But
and then I love you to death, obviously. You know I fucking love you, right? Because we balance each other out.
Yeah.
And, you know, she'll come in, and suddenly I can't hear that voice
She'll
anymore.
crush it. Yeah.
Oh, God.
She just crushed your inner truth. But that's okay.
And then it's a matter of, because she has this
because
same...
that's her thing. But if you really sit down and listen to that voice, it's not scary. Like, nothing is scary anymore. Like, you're like, okay, yeah, this shit is happening, but, and the voice it calms you down almost. It's like, okay, man, this is really what's happening. And then you listen to it, and you're like,
Agree. When you were asking him that, and you're like, where does it come from? I'm like, it's fear, and then the stomach, and the intuition. And I was like, my intuition is saying this. And then it was like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
When I'm here, I'm not scared anymore. And then I get here.
Yep.
And I'm like, you're not flying anywhere. We're not leaving the house. I'm saving all of us because it's all up to me because you don't pay attention.
Yeah. You're not going to die and leave me raising our kid. That's what I'm going to say. Right?
Oh, my goodness.
But it's the fear thing still, right? It just makes us.
Like that hits when I think that's that answer. When I get here, I'm
fine.
okay.
Yeah,
I'm not afraid.
To me, that's the truth. And if it's there, if you're here and you are afraid, then you better be afraid. There's a bear behind you, and it's gonna get you.
There's a part of
I crush your inner voice.
Oh, you don't crush anything, baby.
I totally do.
It's funny.
It's a fact. Thank you, but I do. You would have been doing installs, and I was like,
no,
you don't get to go to the grocery store, so
it's okay.
There's a part of everything that's going on right now, not just Corona, but also on top of it, everything else that's going on with race and everything else that.
Mm-hmm.
The compounded amount of stress and anxiety and fear that each individual person is under right now.
Yeah.
We talked the other day about how much that is fucking up everybody's immune systems, their physical and mental well-being.
The thing that makes
us,
fight off everything is being attacked.
It's being attacked by this fear that is constant and consistent.
Yeah.
And so I feel like, how much do you feel like that has changed for you going through that whole year of the Year Without Fear and everything else that you're kind of, experiencing over the past 10 years, probably, it sounds like. How much more healthy do you think that you are? Not just because you're exercising and running and doing everything, but because you don't have the anxiety and the stress anymore.
I actually think the running and the movement of the body helped me probably the most to get started. Because to me now, because I've always been a chubby dude, I saw pictures of me when I was 5, I wasn't chubby. 6, I was fat as hell. And probably because my mom took up a second job. She didn't cook for us anymore because she didn't have time. So that was McDonald's time. And then, nothing against McDonald's. But so anyways, I got chubby and then didn't move a lot or anything. But when I started saying yes to things, what it did is it made me more active because I was saying yes I was around people that were very active. Like if they were like, "Hey, Mark, man, let's smoke this crack," I'd be like, "No, fuck you, Mark. Let's run 3 miles." And okay, so I was around people that were very active. I just started dating a girl who's super active, and so when I started exercising, I ran a mile with her, and I couldn't run it. I was so embarrassed. I went home. I was like, motherfucker. So I went home, and that night I was like, nope. So I went back in the night, and it was on the trail. And I was like, I'm running a mile. I don't give a shit. I'll run a mile. Because I was embarrassed about it, And so I ran a mile, and I made it. But So what happened to me was the more in shape I got, the more activities I did, the clearer my head was. Like then I could like see things better. Like it sounds weird and stupid maybe in a sense, but it wasn't. It was the more activities that I was doing, the more clear things were. It wasn't like this mud anymore. It was just like, oh, this is what's happening to me. You know, like, oh, this is weird. And then I started running for clarity, not to get in shape, not for anything but to be clear, to see things. And then the other thing that made me start moving was fear of dying. This is going to sound really crazy, dumb. The fear of dying in a natural disaster. Those two things. I know.
What kind of natural disaster?
Okay, so imagine this, right? A mudslide. You gotta listen. You gotta climb a tree in order to survive this mudslide. Okay, you got that in your head, but you can't climb a tree.
Okay.
You have to be able to. There's lava, right? You're in Hawaii. The volcano just went off. Oh shit! You got to run a mile. You can't run a mile. You can't climb a tree and you can't run a mile. You're going to die. So that was in my head. Like, I can't do anything. So when I started being active, like I couldn't run that mile, that's what started it. When I started being active, I said to myself, I don't care what I look like. I'm going to do a pull-up. Couldn't do a pull-up. I'm going to run a mile. I'm going to climb a tree. You know, I'm going to do. And so that's where it sent me, like started me off. Like I didn't care what the scale said. I didn't care what the mirror said, which was really me. I didn't care about any of that. What can you do? And then that's what and then things started, when I would run, like all these thoughts would come to me, like, oh yeah, that's good. You know, so,
has yoga been that as well for you at this point?
Yeah, for sure. 100%. Those two things have been awesome. And then jiu-jitsu is jiu-jitsu where I can't think about anything. So when you're running, you're like, all these thoughts come up, you know, and you can still run, you know, you're on the trail. But when you're doing jiu-jitsu, I can't be thinking like, oh, wow, the universe is talking to me, like, because I'm going to get choked, you know, like I got to be right there. I got to be present.
Yeah.
And I think that helps a lot of people that do jiu-jitsu who are their mind's always like because they're always thinking about that. Like running won't help you do with that because it amplifies it. But jiu-jitsu, however, shuts it down. I can't be thinking about this because my friend is going to try to choke me. So I got to deal with that right now, this minute, for an hour. So I think a lot of people that do jiu-jitsu or anything like that where you have to be present benefit from it because it shuts down that little inner voice. So I have the best of both worlds. I have running or yoga or whatever where I can be off a little bit and come back. And then I have this thing where I've got to be here the whole time. I can't be anywhere else but in this spot. And so that helps me a ton. I really like those two different things.
What's missing in life, Mark?
For me?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Nothing?
Nothing. Now I have goals, but nothing's missing from, like, I'm here. I always tell myself, what are you doing right now? What are you doing right now? Like, I'm riding my bike somewhere and I'm like, a worry comes in, right? Like, oh shit, I forgot to pay this bill. And so I remember that, okay, got to pay my bill. But what are you doing right now? Shit, I'm riding my bike. Do you love riding your bike? I love riding my bike. What are we doing right now? Well, I'm drinking a beer and talking to you guys. Fucking awesome. What I'm doing right now. So I don't live that way and I don't live this way. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I live this right here. This is where I stay. I think about that every once in a while, but it doesn't control me. Like, okay, I've got to pay this bill or I've got to do this. Yeah, okay. Boop, check. Now, what are you doing right now? Talking. That's what I'm doing right now. What happened yesterday? I don't give a shit what happened yesterday. It's not right now. What are you doing right now? So anytime I start to worry about the past or the future, I'm just like, what are right now? And usually it's something awesome.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if it's not something awesome, I don't think, what are you doing right now? Because I'm dealing with it. You know, I'm not thinking, like, if you've ever been in a fight, right? Let's go back to bullies real quick. You have the bully and you're worried about it. I was trying to explain this to my daughter. You're worried about it and you're fearful of what happens in the fight. You know the fight's going to happen because he said, hey, after school, we're fighting. So you're thinking about it. But when you're fighting, you're not afraid. Like when you're in it, you're not afraid. You're not like, oh shit, I'm in a fight. No, you're like, I'm going to kick this motherfucker's ass. Oh, he's moving this way. Oh, he's going this way. I got to deal with this. Oh, he's trying to get me in the headlock. You're dealing with it. You're not afraid of it. It's only when it's in front of you, like in the future, that you're like, uh-oh. Or something that's happened in the past and it's haunting you. But at the very moment, the very moment that's happening, there's no fear in there. You're doing it. You're in it. You're involved. I went surfing one time. Not surfing, body surfing. It's like 12. I was in Hawaii. Oh, I got my ass kicked by this wave. And I almost damn near drowned, really. Not to be dramatic, but I almost did. And I'm on the beach and I'm like crying and shit, and like snot's coming out and mixed with salt and it's getting in my mouth. I don't know if it's salt or the seawater that I'm tasting. And I'm like, oh, I almost died. But when I was getting like in the wave and all fucked up, I wasn't afraid. I was just like, oh shit, I got to get up to the top of this. Like I'm working to get there. There was no fear there. It was like survival. I'm right here. This is what I'm doing. I got to get out of it. And then when I got out, I was like, the haunting, like you almost died, almost kept me out of the water.
Yeah.
Can you imagine being in Hawaii for 2 weeks and never getting in the water? Screw that shit. So that lesson was like, no, man, that happened. Yeah, fucked up. Yeah, you almost died, but guess what? You didn't die. So just don't do stupid shit. You know what I mean? Like, don't be dumb. And then I talked to my Hawaiian friend years later, and he's like, Mark, you know what? You know the difference between Hawaiians and Haoles? And I don't know how bad a word a Haole is, but just not from Hawaii. That's how I see it. I'm like, no, what's the difference? He goes, when the Haoles go to the beach, they run right to the beach and they get in the water. Right? They don't care what the waves are doing. They don't look. They just run like it's an amusement park, which I'm guilty of.
Yeah,
which,
me too.
when I was 12, especially. That's what I did. I just ran out there. And he goes, watch a Hawaiian person go to the beach. They'll sit on the sand and they'll watch the beach for 15 minutes. And they'll look and they'll see, you know, where the riptide is, how hard it's coming, you know, what's happening with the water. Then they'll get in the water. You know, and then they'll surf or do whatever they're going to do. And so
I'm just running straight in.
Yeah, me too.
Every time we go to the ocean, like even like
it's
now.
calling you, right?
Yeah,
it's calling you, and you're like, yeah, I can't wait to get in there. But that might not be the smartest thing to do.
Okay, so that messes with me because we talked about the worry that I have and how I need to just trust this. When we went to California and all the kids were going to be in the ocean, I'm like, I'm not a strong swimmer.
Yeah.
I'm not. Like, it's up to you to keep our babies alive. I was terrified.
Yeah.
And then as soon as we got to the beach and I saw the ocean with all the babies and all that fear went away. Yeah. And I was that, get in the water. Yeah. I was like, not only, I wasn't being cautious, I was herding my kids to the water.
Which is fine, but you're making that decision after seeing it, which is fine. Yeah. You know, it might take some people 15 minutes, but you made a mental note like, okay, this is happening, boom, 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 and you're breaking it all down. That's exactly what we do. And you're not doing it with fear. You're not like, oh my God, you're just looking at it and being like, okay, this is happening, this is happening. There's a 2-year-old right there. Right?
I'm like, wow.
Yeah, there's a 2-year-old in the water right there. He's fine.
Yeah.
Or she's fine. And then you're making a judgment based on that. So
I'd like to think that's what happened.
That's what happened. I guarantee you just didn't send your kids out there and there's a shark out there that you didn't notice. You know what I mean? Like, you made judgments based on that. And it wasn't fear. It was like, boop, logic or whatever we want to call it. It was an assessment of the situation without being afraid. Before you were afraid. Mm-hmm. Then you're in the situation. You're in the present moment. You're looking at it and then you're making a decision based on now. What are you doing right now? Right. Yeah. Not, oh my God, there's going to be sharks in there. Yeah. Or somebody's going to get, a riptide's going to pull them out and we're not going to be able to get them. Yeah. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Baby, what are you going to say yes to?
Oh, that's a great question. What have you...
I'm like glaring. I'm like, hey.
Let me ask this question. What do you always say no to?
I don't know.
No, there's something. There's something that you say no to, and then no matter who asks you, you're like, nope.
I say no to all.
Choose one.
Choose one.
What do you say no to that you want to say yes to?
My brain goes blank. When I get put on the spot, I'm like,
you're gonna be driving home and be like, oh shit, I know what it is.
We'll just wait.
We'll just wait.
It's gonna come up.
Wait for your answer.
Don't do that. Jesus. The logic is coming. I'm like, well, I could say yes to this, but financially I can't say yes to this right now. So
what is it though? Can't even say it. Damn.
Damn it. Yes, I can.
Yes,
I can.
I know you can.
God. I've got 3 things that are really hard in my head right now, and that pisses me off because I don't want to say yes to any of them right now.
Well, what are they? You don't have to say yes to them. You just have to know what they are. Is it embarrassing?
One of them is very embarrassing.
Keep that one hidden and tell us the other 2.
So the first one is my fear over... I'm about to say it and I realize how stupid I sound for being afraid of it.
No.
Is joining another dance group because I don't feel like I'm good enough and I'll fail. Mm-hmm. And so I'm coming up with all the reasons that I can't do it right now.
Right. Some of them are financial. Some of them are times. Most of them, all of them are fear. Right?
You're right. You are right.
Yeah.
So I need to say yes to that.
Yeah. Does somebody invite you to this?
Yes.
Like picked her out and said, hey, you're good enough. Come participate in this.
There's no reason not to.
You're right.
I mean, you made up a bunch of reasons, but they're not good reasons. You know what I mean? And we get really, really good at that. Really good.
I feel like I am a master at
that.
Yep.
I felt like that too. And then I look at it and I'm like, dude, what are you? Come on. Look at what you're doing. You step outside of it and you can see it and you're like, oh, damn it. I did it again. But then you're just like, nope, okay, I'll do it. And then you're all scared and shit all the way till you do it.
Yeah.
Then you're in it and you're like, that was awesome.
All right. I guess I'm joining. I guess I'm going to say yes.
What was the second one? I can't remember.
Oh, she fucking remembers.
Yeah,
oh, no?
No, I remember the embarrassing one, but I don't remember. I guess the other one.
You don't have to say.
No, but the embarrassing one, I'm not going to.
Yeah, I wouldn't. And just the fact of recognizing it, I think, like, what am I doing? Like, no, I really want to do this. That's the worst thing when you really want to do it. Yeah. And you talk yourself out of doing it.
Yeah,
because you're afraid. Still don't. Yeah.
There's so many silly things like that in my head right now.
Yeah, there's a bunch.
Yeah, so many.
All right, let's hear yours now. You got to give one.
They're just silliness. I mean, because it's not even stuff. There's stuff that I say yes to sometimes, right? But every now and then it's like right now in the last 2 or 3 weeks, I started running with my son.
Oh, nice.
Get him out of the house.
Hell yeah.
We just run a mile 3 days a week. Cool. Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We're up early and we go running. And I love it. Mm-hmm. It sucks ass and I fucking hate it.
Yeah.
And it's miserable, but I love it.
Yes. Yeah.
And let's see. Today's Friday, right?
Yes.
So yesterday I said no to it. I could have gone today. I said no to it.
Why?
All those fucking bullshit reasons, right? All those bullshit reasons. And I'm like, it's one of those things too that I had the workaround in my head because I know I need to fucking run. I like running. Yeah. All the stuff that you talk about, I fucking love it. Mm-hmm. I used to do it on a regular basis and I loved it.
Yeah.
And so I had the workaround to like play that, like I knew how my mind worked.
Yeah.
So I incorporated the boy because I knew that he would be the part that would like.
He's not going to back down from it or change your mind.
And it's like if I have the addedness of doing it for him.
Responsibility of
but I'm still quitting, still saying no. And that's pissing me off. So we're going to go running tomorrow.
Good.
And then there's like, I mean, little ones, like we did the ice bath stuff for a while and I've been wanting to do that some more and get back into it. I'm like, we just need to fucking put that ice bath in. We've got it in the fucking backyard. It's there. It's ready to go. There's no excuses at all. We should need to sit in that fucking ice again. And that's like a silly, I mean, it sucks and there's fear associated with it and it's hard and it's
Yeah,
difficult, but it's so silly because at the end of the day, it's like the benefits from it are huge.
Yeah. Yep.
So there's a couple things like that. And then I'm trying to think bigger picture stuff, and I can't think of anything that's like jumping out right now.
Yeah. They'll come to you. It comes. And it presents itself too. And as soon as you hear something and you're like, no, that's it. There it is. It's right there.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Mark, you want to go to? Nah, I gotta. Oh, shit.
That's the thing you say yes to.
Like, I really could. I could do this. Yeah, I got to move this date. I got to call this person and see if it's cool. Blah blah blah. I can do it. I can do it. So yeah, I'm gonna do it.
Well, Mark, thank you so much, man.
Yeah, man. It's always a pleasure.
I love it. I appreciate it so much.
You found the park.
It's perfect, right? It worked out great.
It's nice.
You were on episode number 2 of the podcast. I don't remember, like in the 70s or 80s, you were on again.
I'm like podcast elite right
You
now.
are. I don't think anybody else has ever been on 3 times.
I think so.
We've had a couple of repeat guests, but
Number 3.
So
I'm sorry, this is Asher. He called me a few times, and so I figured I would try and text just to make sure, because I worry.
Yeah,
you're good, babe. Is there anything that you want to throw out?
No.
Cool.
Let's have fun. It's fun.
Yeah.
Dig it.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.